So the journey begins today, Magnus.
Yes, we're back on the trail, and well, last time we walked from the source of the Brisbane River on top of the Bunya Mountains down to this place here, and this is the first private property in the catchment.
And what route do you think we should be taking?
Today's route, very simple. This is Cooyar Creek right here, and it's dry as you can see up here. We'll be following Cooyar Creek all the way to the Cooyar Township. And it's a nice walk, it's all cattle grazing land mainly, and a few nice pieces of history along the way as well.
And we have a nice colleague as well.
Yes.
Morning, gents. How are we all?
Luke's joined us to be part of the core team.
Yes. So Luke, you're on board?
On board, all the way.
Good. Well, we have 20 k's to walk today, so let's get on the road, yeah?
Yeah.
So I'm here with Rob Ryan, and we're walking on your land, Rob.
That's right, yeah.
And the name of this property is Vincent Vale.
That's right.
And I've seen the name Vincent Vale in documents going quite far back in time.
Yep.
So it has a bit of history to it, yeah?
It does, yeah. Yep. My great-grandfather selected this place in 1894. So yeah, I'm the fourth generation on the place, and there's two more, generations following me. So yeah, it's quite an old place.
And when your great-grandfather arrived, from what I understand, he brought a family on a horse and cart.
Oh yeah, you know that story.
Yeah, I've read it.
Yeah,
this is all documented, And then they arrived here in this, and it would have been all eucalypt bushlands at the time.
It was, yeah. I think they came here in about 1901.
Yeah.
And started developing the land and ring barking and fencing and stocking and
building a small hut that's no longer there.
No, it's gone. Yeah. The old this other house over here, it was built in 1929 to replace the old Vincent Vale cottage.
The original homestead.
Yeah.
I suppose farming is it's a long-term project.
That's right.
And the next generations, it's all lining up pretty nicely here.
Yeah, hopefully it'll continue to stay that way.
Yeah.
You never know what's around the corner for farming.
Yeah.
I think things are probably getting tougher. The weather's sort of not helping. In the last 20 or 30 years, we're struggling more with weather, and rainfall's sort of gone back annually a little bit. But it's not only that's the way it's falling. It's all or nothing these days. You have a big downpour and then it just switches off. That makes it tougher.
Yeah.
It's harder to make a living, especially out of straight grazing. These days, a lot of families around in the same boat are sort of diversifying, or partners are working away, or even sidelines just to try to help make a few dollars.
Make it work. Yeah. Rob, you hinted last time we talked about a hailstorm that hit Vincent Vale a few years back.
Yep.
That sounded incredible.
It was. It was something that we just over our property, and no one else it didn't affect anyone else. So there's been two things that stand out in my memory over the years.
Yeah.
Incredible natural events. One was the 88 flood.
Yep.
Kuya flood.
Yeah.
But the other was this hailstorm we had in the late 70s. It came over one night from the southwest through to the northeast, just a narrow strip. We didn't know that on the night.
Yeah.
But it just bucketed down hail, and it was probably about 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And after the hailstorm was over, the moon shone and the hills were just white like snow. I've never seen snow but I can imagine what it would look like.
Yeah.
Next morning we got up and it was a dry time too. It was roughly September, I suppose. It was a dry time and we thought this is great. The creek actually ran hail.
Yeah. So like the icy sludge went down the creek.
Yep. And we thought this is great. Went up the paddock the next morning and we're very disappointed to find that the hailstorm had only gone about half a cape up the creek. It probably was, the strip was probably only about 1 kilometre wide. And just straight down across us. And the amazing thing that happened though was that there was the hail in the creek bridged in a few places, and then it froze together.
So it bunched up into a bridge, basically.
Yeah, like a bridge, and the water flowed underneath it. The next morning went down, the creek had dropped at only a slow run, but these bridges of hail were still there. And we walked across them. And then as that melted and got softer and weaker, we actually lost some cattle. They went out there and they went through the hail, and they were sort of became exposed to the cold before we got to them. And some were already dead and some had died a bit later.
How many cattle did you lose?
I think we lost about 3 and the neighbours lost 1 or 2. And the amazing thing was, and we kept an eye on this, that under the debris there was still hail there 11 days later.
Incredible. Wow.
So,
There's nothing like the Queensland weather, is there?
No, that's right.
And what you have behind me is the remnants of a one-room school, and they were also called one-teacher schools. Small schools were built all over Queensland in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And here in the southeast there was one about every 10 kilometers, and that distance was set by the maximum distance that a pupil could be expected to walk every day. Even for a one-room school, this was tiny. In 1930 there were about 15 kids in here, of mixed ages from the surrounding farms. And as you can imagine, the teachers were specially trained to handle these sort of classes. The one-room schools had a fairly standard design. They were typical Queensland, timber and tin, high set with a play area underneath, and you can see the stumps are still here. Over time, as the roads improved and transport improved, schools became more centralized, and as I said, this school closed in 1940. Now the school building is no longer here, it's sitting somewhere on the Sunshine Coast, but there are still members of the community here who attended this school in the 1930s, so it's very much part of living memory.
You need a permit to move them off.
Do you?
On a proper stock route, yeah.
Okay. So Luke, we're standing in this piece of government land, and when you look at the maps, it's down as a camping reserve. It's about 50 acres big. So what does a camping reserve mean?
So the camping reserves here are for stock and for the drovers of those livestock. This is the main stock route from Dalby through to Brisbane. There was a butcher's track in the 1870s from Wivenhoe to Brisbane. and then this joined onto that. In 1878, they gazetted 13 of these camping reserves along this stock route, and the idea was that you would move reserve to reserve. So sheep, you had to keep them moving 4 miles a day, horses and cattle 7 miles a day, and the idea was you would come to a reserve, you would camp the night, water your stock, Cooyar Creek behind us here, and then move on to the next route or the next camp on the route the next day.
So with that speed, it would take a month to move sheep from Dalby to Brisbane.
Yeah, worst case, absolutely. It's a long trip nonetheless.
Wow. And from what I understand, we were just talking to some of the local farmers, these are still used as reserves for droving?
Yeah, absolutely. The stock routes still remain all throughout this country and are still used. As you were saying, we were talking to the guys before, and they use them to move a mob down for the Kuya camp draft that happened just a couple of weekends ago.
Great.
And bring them back.
So camping reserve doesn't mean anyone go out and put your tent up and camp?
No, definitely not. They are solely for the purpose of driving stock.
Yeah. Now, if you think that's itchy, you're absolutely right.
Used to drive through town, stand up the back and now man and up and yell out at the top of the town. Sit down, you kids! And we'd all sit down. Well, my name's Michael James Duncombe and owner of Coo Homestead. So originally 60,000 acres and now just a smidgy over 3,000.
So you're the third generation, yeah?
Third generation,
Yeah. So your granddad took up the land?
My grandfather bought it, yep, and my father, when he first got married, he came up here to run it for my grandfather.
Yeah.
And then he then bought it off of him in 83, something like that. And then, yeah, we took over in 2013.
And it's mainly cattle country, I take it, yeah?
Just cattle here now, yep. The spear grass got too bad for sheep. That's why they went out of sheep here and the dingoes.
And dingoes as well.
Oh, yep, heavy dingo country. So it's still a problem now, even. The dingoes, every year, you know, it's an issue for us, calving time, and, you know, once we get to this part of the year where your calves are a little bigger, it's not as big an issue. But, yeah, no, they're an issue to our business, I suppose.
Yeah,
not an issue to the land, but yeah, they do their thing.
And we're sitting in Cooyar Creek, but it's a pretty dry creek at the moment, isn't it?
It is. Even its permanent holes aren't as permanent as they used to be.
As they used to be.
I mean, the creek used to run all the time, and then when it stopped in the 90s, there was still permanent holes most of the time. But in the last drought, which is still going, but we pretty much went down to one Ravenna and Cooyar Township.
So how do you solve that with the livestock? Is it still enough to keep it going, or?
So we pump out of that permanent hole right at the homestead.
Yeah.
And we then to a high tank which gravitates to troughs local to the homestead itself, and then anything further out is either dams or we cart water on a truck, and so we just shift. We just have one mob on water cartage, so then you can just shift them from place to place and just change your water cart to that.
So from your own bores. So you're the third generation.
Yeah.
I mean, I've travelled. I've lived from Sweden, lived in the UK, lived here, and I've moved around my whole life. And there's something about that living locally, and you know, you're born here and you work there, and you'll probably be buried over there, but you're part of that community, and it's a multi-generational thing. Yeah. There's something special about that.
There is.
And I don't mind my life. I've had a great life, but I'm a bit envious of that sort of being in that context, you know.
You definitely feel closer in the community to all the long-term families. It's just something about it. It's just, it's like you've known, well, you have known each other forever, but it's like you've lived together forever where you haven't. But and yeah, it's just wherever we see each other, though, there's about 4 families around here that have been pretty long-term, generational around town. And yeah, no, everyone gets along. They're good community people.
It's a nice town.
It is.
Another thing, and it's part of the research for this walk, I found some records of a granite quarry. And in my view, it seemed like it was somewhere on your land,
Yep.
on the Cooyar land, and it was only active between 1925 and 1931, roughly. But during that time, it was touted as being one of the finest sources of granites in Australia and even in the whole of the Commonwealth. And we know the old saying about a mine, it's a hole in the ground with a liar on top. We have found no record of where this quarry is.
No. Well, just going by the maps that
Yeah,
that I seen that you sent through,
Yeah.
that one site that was probably it. Well, I know where it is, and I don't know at all whether it was a mine or not.
Yeah.
But we'll go and have a look regardless.
Let's see if we can find it. The granite was used in Toowoomba, we know that, and possibly in Brisbane as well.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice to find a shard and polish it up and see if we can match it to where it came from. So behind us is the wash pool, Mick.
Yeah. So this has always been the wash pool to us growing up at the creek here. Spent many Easters down here having Sunday lunch.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, quite an amazing spot to sit when the creek's flowing. But so the story goes that they used to wash the wool down here. Now there's conflicting stories whether the wool was washed still on the sheep,
Okay.
so as live animals and then taken home to be shorn,
Yeah.
or whether they brought the wool bales up here and washed them on the flat rock here. But so I don't 100% know whether that's exactly what happened, but that's what we've been told it growing up here. So
Well, as a minimum, it was a great water hole. Both for the
very
sheep and for
permanent,
people.
even in the driest of dry.
Yeah.
This is permanent water. So
And you're saying that it was about a year ago since you last saw water coming down here?
that's
in Cooyar
right.
Creek?
So the water, meanders down through all these cracks, and it's
yeah.
quite nice to sit and look. And it's very volcanic type rock here.
Yeah.
You can see all the impregnated rock in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's quite a nice spot to hang out.
And it must be fantastic here when the water here will be absolutely clean. It comes from the National Park and
Yep.
goes through a few farms up there, but that's nothing particular, and then just straight in here.
Very clean, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
That's good stuff.
I wish I could see it.
Yeah. Where that granite quarry area was, and well, right through here. So, like,
How would you get 3? So the hypothesis is that this is the lost granite quarry of Cooyar Creek, producing the finest blue granite in the Commonwealth. And this is probably as close as we're going to get. There's no sign of workings, but it's the one spot where granite comes through to the surface, and you could work it from the side. But then you'd have to get it up the gully on the other side, so and cart it for about 2-3 kilometers. So who knows? But I'm going to pick a piece of this granite, I'm going to take it home, I'm going to polish it, see what it looks like. So this stung pretty badly half an hour ago, and now it's a lot worse. I think it's time to change socks. You're just going to get like that again.
Oh, you had some reaction, have you?
Oh no, I've just got, I don't know what it looks like underneath, but it's a bit itchy.
Is it?
Yeah. So we're at the Cooyar showgrounds, and this is the site of a very lively annual Cooyar show and a camp draft as well that are held in late February, and we timed some of this project so we could watch or experience that show, but of course it's cancelled due to COVID. It's been running since 1948 and the camp draft as well, so it has a bit of a heritage status around here. And very popular. Thousands of people come here every year. All right, how are we feeling? Hot.
Hot. Yeah.
Yeah. We've done about 20 k's, so we've done well. Now behind us is the sign to the Cooyar Township. We're not going to step over that boundary in this this walk. We'll be doing that next time, probably about a month out or so.
Yep.
And there's quite a few interesting pieces of history to look at inside Cooyar. So we'll take our time and have a good look around. Any last thoughts?
No, I don't think so today. It's been a pound the pavement type of walk today, but it hasn't been too bad. A few spots, a few nice, interesting spots along the way.
Good.
Yeah, I think the highlights were the wash pool,
Yeah.
the granite. I like that area.
Yeah, beautiful. Excellent. Well, there'll be plenty to look at next time around, so let's go and have a milkshake, yeah?
Sounds like a plan.
All right.